I am so delighted, almost giddy at the fact that there's now a well installed on this particular piece of property. Until this point, we were hauling in water from a local farm, a nearby farm, and very often we had to haul water between locations. Now, I'm going to share a little bit about how we did some rainwater capture to tide us over, and actually how this system is designed. And this is a design that we put together so that we can manage this site with or without power. Now, I want to tell you right up front, the well just went in. Okay, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. The well has just gone in, and I recorded a little video about who did that. If you look in the description, you'll probably find a link to that. But the wire is on top of the ground right now because we need to trench to bury that wire, but also to bury the 1-inch pipe that's going to help us with our irrigation. The number one reason why you're going to put a well on a piece of property is either for your home or for agricultural use. In this case, we have an agricultural well. Now, there's no real technical difference between a home well and an agricultural well, other than the home well is going to have a little bit more head equipment on it so that you get clean water to the house. An agricultural well might be ran on solar. It might be ran on just power to low flow, because again, you're going to be feeding hydrants. This hydrant is connected by a 1-inch pipe. We had a hydrant installed away from the wellhead because we're going to end up putting a small building around this wellhead. One of the things you need to know about putting a building up around your wellhead, and by the way, I want this to be a guide, so if there's anything I miss, ask it in the comments below. But if we put a building around this, we need to make sure that we can extract the pump from the wellhead. Okay, so there's a pipe in the ground, and I'm not going to take the lid off of it for this particular video, but there's a pipe in the ground, and at the top of that pipe is a plug that connects to a pump. This well is 325 feet underground. It has a head of water that's approximately 500 gallons. It's a 5 to 7 gallon per minute recharge rate. How do we know that? Because that's what the equipment on the well company came out. A lot of folks ask me, why didn't you just dig your own well? Why didn't you just rent the equipment? They came out here with a truck that filled this whole space up. That was probably $1 million truck with hoses and pipes and equipment. It was just better to let the professionals do the work. But we have to make sure our well's going in the right place. Now, originally there was a flag because you have to get your well permit. The guy's going to come out here and just randomly pick a spot. Now, he's using experience and stuff like that, but there was originally a well over further in. There's originally a flag for a well on the other end, and it represents a corner of an area that's acceptable for placing the well. This particular site here has a road that goes here. This is going to be a road or a path that goes here to a trail on the other side. And so anywhere between that trail and this access point is perfectly fine for the well. And so they were able to back their equipment in, get it leveled, and get that well drilled. Now, what you're going to notice is a lot of rock in this. All right, see all that rock? That's because we're over top of granite and other types of like the rock you dump in your road. So the road base and the ballast rock. It's that type of rock. So he said he went down 90 feet, and after 90 feet, they hit rock, and it was rock all the way down to the depth of 325 feet. Now, how would I know there was rock underground before they drilled? Well, one of the things we do when we work with clients on site preparation is we actually go up and look at the geological records. Now, there's different surveys and maps. This particular property, when you go down 90 to 100 feet, it is all rock. In fact, we're less than a mile away from a rock quarry. And so on this particular site, they're looking for cracks and crevices in that rock. And this particular type of rock doesn't have very many cracks and crevices. So no matter where I put this particular well, we are going to hit that rock. And that means a deeper well, does mean colder, cleaner water. But our recharge rate is very slow because there isn't as much way to get the surface water into the ground over the last 10,000 years. Because again, there's a giant boulder under there. And we've seen the rock outcroppings, just showed you that in other videos. Now, when I use these tools for clients, I can find, without ever visiting the property, higher quality spots to put the well, but that doesn't mean you're going to end up with a 75-foot well or a 100-foot well. They may have to go down 300 to 400 feet. If you ask the well company how far they typically have to go down in this area, they will know. They'll have an idea because they have to, every one of these wells are permitted. And not only are they permitted, they're all got serial numbers on them. But my point being is don't go in with the expectation they're going to find water all the way, right away. Now, some people are worried that if they don't find water in one place, that they're going to have to go drill someplace else, because it took about half the day to drill down this far. That can happen, but it's not likely with the pre-planning. Another factor is the well is not on the highest part of the property. So the highest elevation is over there at 1,000 feet. We are about 20 foot or 10 foot below that 1,000 foot. And then we are near the property line, but he's given us enough margin for error that we can still get in there with fences and stuff like that. Now, there are laws, rules, and regulations for your area. That's why you do have to get a well permit. And most well companies will not talk with you at all unless you have that permit in hand. And then you need to make a certified copy and give it to them because they're going to keep it on file. Another factor to consider is how are we going to use water? So in this case, there's a property line on the other side there. It's about 2,500 foot where we want applicable water. And so we may end up with a hydrant every 500 feet. And the well is slightly above grade on that line. Why is that important? Well, because if you can get water out of the well into a head tank or cistern, you can let gravity feed that line. And so if you do lose power, you'll still be able to get water to your livestock. Now, this pump, this hydrant is on grade. It's on levels. So the water comes out of the well, it goes into a pressure tank. I don't know if I can flip this really quick. Let me just see if I can flip it really quick because this will be illustrated to you. Because I originally thought I was going to go install all these pieces. All right, I'll get somebody to help me put that back on there. I originally thought I'd go get all these pieces because it's a very simple design. There's a pump down at the bottom of the well, brings water up to a pressure tank. There's a regulator that's going to regulate the pressure. That's that box in the center. And when the power's on, it's going to push water through the lines. So it'll pull water up from underground, push it through the lines. And this one has a silt trap on it. Now, I had them put one hydrant in place. Here's a little tip. Don't let them just put a well with no hydrant, because all of this apparatus right here, this filtration, this standpipe, and this is our 1-inch to the hydrant. I don't have to dig this up again. Okay, so I got my hydrant in place. I watched how they install it. Now I can install hydrants all day long. But when it comes time to put the next hydrant in, I can put a manifold here. A manifold is going to come down and then split off, okay, for my different runs. If I'm going to have a circulating watering system, and this is what we do in our designs. If I'm going to have a circulating water system, I can handle all my circulation equipment, everything in there, and I'll be good to go. But if I run out of power, it won't be able to siphon water up from underground, but it will be able to drain this tank a little bit to get us the pressure tank and the line, because this is at grade. If I open this up, it'll suck air down there. I'll be able to drain my entire line. So I'm actually going to do my initial installation above ground for my water lines on that property line. And then in the winter, I can drain that pipe. Now, draining that pipe is going to require some outlets up here that get turned on and off, but ultimately I could drain that pipe and I won't have a risk of freezing it, because sometimes you don't have the equipment to trench 2,500 feet to bury your water lines. And that's just something that happens on farms. Now, another factor is we're going to run water from here up to a cistern, which it's called a head tank, which is going to give me water above grade. In this case, from the bottom of that tank to the lowest part in this watering system is 40 feet. And so I'm going to have 40 foot ahead, very far away from this particular well, so that if I need it to drain, that's 1,500 gallon tank. Again, it could be a 2,500 gallon tank, it could be a 7,500 gallon tank. Just depends on your water use, but we're raising goats here. that particular tank is our primary feed for all of the watering systems that we're putting in place. And so what this pump really does is just with a float valve on the tank up the top, just periodically tops off that tank. But I can also add rainwater to that tank. I can have a pump truck come in periodically for that tank, so that if we do run into a situation where my flow rate in the ground isn't high enough to fill that tank or keep it filled, I can top that tank off. Also, I can supplement what's in that tank, because again, we're watering livestock, we're watering crops. I can supplement what's in that tank with rainwater. We are fortunate in Martinsville, Henry County to have 44 inches of rain a year, and the proper rainwater collection system is going to allow me to collect 40 to 50,000 gallons of water a year to irrigate with. And I'm going to get tax breaks for that. I'm going to get other benefits for that, which are going to ultimately allow me to use my well less. Now, are you going to wear out your well? Not necessarily. If we're going to run and irrigate crops, this flow rate may not be good enough. We may need to have another well further back on the property. But as far as goats are concerned, a typical goat can drink 3 gallons of water a day. Drink or waste 3 gallons of water a day. We're going to have plenty of water off the head tank, because you can take the 1,500 gallons and divide it by 3, and that's going to tell us how many days of water we got above ground. And again, because we're topping this off with a float valve, we can put that float valve down near the middle of the tank and actually only use the well when the tank is low, rather than just keeping the tank topped off at 1,500 gallons. So we could come up with 750 gallons is our, so you're gonna have a pipe coming out of your, and again, we design all this stuff for people. It's a lot easier to talk about on paper, but we've done it a few times. So we could have a pipe coming out of the 1,500 gallon tank at 1,400 gallons. So it's a little bit up off the ground, so we don't get silt and anything in it. We can have a solids filter, just like what you see here. Then we can run that water at maybe the 750 gallon for the top off. And so we're going to have at least 700 gallons of water in that tank before this kicks off. So we take the 700 and divide it by the 3, and that tells us how many animal days we have water for in reserve. Now gives me an idea. Now gives me an idea when I need to call in a truck. So whether it's a donation to the fire department, or it's I hire a truck service to come out, like the guys that fill pools, I'm now able to top my tank off. Now, should I have 2 head tanks? Maybe. Should I have taller head tanks? Maybe. It really depends on what we're doing. But this is going to allow me to run gravity only autofill troughs, troughs that top off, smaller waterers for the baby goats, and a lot of other things, because that 700 gallon head, now it could be filled to the top at 1,500 gallons, but that 700 gallon head, worst case, will operate the 3 gallons per minute, or that I need for my, I think it's like 10 PSI that I need for my auto waterers. And so again, we're designing a system. We're not just getting a well. We're designing a system to hydrate the land, to water the plants, to water gardens, to basically have water where we need it. That way we can install the system once. Now this system, we're going to install it in phases, and if you're subscribed to the channel, you can follow along with those phases. Our newsletter subscribers are going to get more insights. But ultimately, I want to be able to start this watering above ground without having to dig up anything here. And that's what this has allowed me to do. Again, typically they're going to include a hydrant, or they're going to include a certain distance they're going to run that well, 150 feet or so, that they're going to run it to a house or a building. I run it to a hydrant because, again, there's no houses on this property. There's no buildings that are going to have running water because it is a farm property. So I want to get in with the minimum outlay of cash. I want to start using that water, because today, well, as soon as the power is connected, I can run a 200-foot garden hose off of this thing, and I can water anything nearby, as well as fill up the head tanks I was already using when the goats were completely off-grid. And so again, if you're not following the off-grid goat system, we did cover several watering systems that are completely rainwater, or you haul in the water. and we've done good, better, and best there as well. But if I have to, I run a garden hose from here all the way up to my head tank install. And then from the head tank, we do feed everything. Now again, why are we feeding everything with the head tank? Well, the head tank is almost in the middle of the property. So if I run one leg down that property line, and I run the other leg down the other property line, or even down the center of the property, because we do have a ridge down the center of the property, then I will be able to feed it all from one tank. And that one tank is going to allow me to have head pressure at the end of the line, which far exceeds the requirements for the auto waterers. Now, I want to just make sure, because it gets pretty hot around here. We get 44 inches of rain a year, but it's been 90 some degrees. My priority on this project is that animals always have water, and that whatever water system we install is relevant if later we end up having, cows or pigs or larger livestock. And so again, I want a flexible system, because that's going to be the fastest system to recover the cost and investment, because this stuff is not cheap. Anything you invest in the design is nothing compared to the price it's going to take to put equipment in. Because 2,500 foot water line with hydrants every 500 feet, plus the equipment to put it in the ground, we're looking at a significant amount of money. However, it also means more pound on the ground. So 10,000 pounds per acre is more likely with water than it is without water. And then also secondary crops and things like that, because one of the things that we're doing here is that we're going to have the silvopasture, and in those hedges, we're going to have fruits, vegetables, and things like that. So when we're establishing silvopasture, we may need to run drip line out on the land. So what does it look like in a consultation? So if you're sitting down with me, what we're going to talk about is, again, what do you want to do with the farm? What are other farms doing that is very profitable? What are your local markets look like? Are you selling direct, or are you selling indirect? Are you going to have camping, cabins, or any type of ecotourism or agricultural tourism on the property? We're going to get all that profile put together first, and then we're going to think about where we're going to put a well. Because this well could have gone here. It could have gone up at the front of the property. It could have gone in the back of the property. There's no shortage of places to put a well. But again, if we don't have the proper design, you might be happy about having a well, but spending extra money to get your well system working. In this case, the main to run the water up the hill is one connection to the well. And then at the head tank, we're going to have a cistern in a small building that's going to help us with distribution. But we also are going to have, because the water from the well is cold and the water from the tank is likely to be warm, we're also going to have hot and cold water as a side effect of having the system designed a certain way. Now, of course, we're going to send that water back underground out to the hydrants. The water will cool off underground, so we'll have cool water for the animals. But as far as having warm water at this location, especially with dairy goats, we can probably get away with a solar heater to get us hot water over at the milking stalls. And so now we're going to come off that tank with water that in the summer is warm. It's not going to be warm in the winter, so it doesn't negate the need for maybe a hot water on demand in a milking stall. But again, that's another story. The key is that we're thinking about these things, because even if I put, I think, 100,000 into the water lines and got the property completely watered, by the way, it would increase the property values. It's not necessarily something you want to do right away, because again, we're cash flowing these properties with the activities on the property. And so by implementing in phases, we're able to, buy a well, get some money, install a head tank, get some money, install one leg on one side of the property, get some money, install another leg on the other side of the property, get some money. And then we're actually going to do a looping system, install the back and front loop, get some money. And then while we've had the depreciation on the equipment, while we've had the depreciation on the well itself, while we've had the tax breaks associated with the fence infrastructure, while we've had the other types of elements, we've also had more than enough income to pay for everything. Now, will it pay for everything in 1 year? Most likely it does. However, there are market factors. So we've also done what we call ratcheting, and that's not an attitude or behavior. Ratcheting is basically moving up phases in order to build a stable foundation that improves over time. So this is kind of the behind the scenes. Oh, this is part of a course, by the way. But this is kind of what's going on with a well. If you're interested in sitting down on design and looking at the design for your property, it is a little bit more than putting a pen on the paper or figuring out where your house where you want your house. Because in our model, the house is the least important thing. You know, you can live in a double wide or a single wide, or you can live in a van down by the river if you want. But if you don't have a well, there will be times that it's uncomfortable. Now, again, if you're doing a facility that has camping, you're doing hunting lodges, you're doing other things, this well could be a spring. This well could be an old well that you refurbished, and you may not have a lot of choice about where it's located. And so again, understanding concepts like head tanks allow you to make the most of it, because I can feed a head tank with a pond, I can feed a head tank with a spring, I can feed a head tank with an old slow well. So we can get a desirable outcome with the resources that are available. So I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you're watching this and you're not enrolled into our Farm Empire program, you go visit www.prosperityhomestead.org and look for the Farming Empire program and get involved in that, because there's a lot more that goes to this. But if you're just getting the general idea about where to place your well, the thought behind that, why it's important to think about these things, why a design plan is so critical, and ultimately how to have this stuff pay for itself, then you're in the right place. Ask your questions in the comments below, or visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org. This is part of our podcast. We've got hundreds of episodes to help you avoid common mistakes and many things that make homesteads a nightmare, that are going to take you from small farm to homestead to estate in a way that folks are just going to wonder. You won't have the typical farm takes $1 million to get started. A lot of folks don't have $1 million sitting around. We'll show you how to get lifestyle adjacent. We'll show you how to get food security adjacent. We'll show you how to get physical security with even degraded land. Again, this particular property is all overgrown, poorly managed. I've hauled out a lot of trash. Yet we've got a goat operation coming along here pretty quick. And then I've worked with other farms that have had worse land, and now their properties are worth millions of dollars. And again, it's not just the monetary value of these things. It's the personal freedom, the ability to make decisions, and to ultimately get results consistently. And we do that with a design plan. Thanks for watching. This has been about the well install, and we have a couple more videos on this series. Be sure to ask about them when you visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. I'm Justin Hitt. I'll see you in the next episode.